Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Actraf conversation. My name is Mamadou Soare, and I'm the head of communication and publications at VAILO's Bureau for Workers' Activities. Today, we are very pleased to welcome Vera Perdigao. Vera is the director of VAILO Department of Governance. Welcome, Vera, and thank you again for joining us for this conversation. My first question to you, as you know, VAILO just launched recently a flagship report on social dialogue. This edition focuses on peak-level social dialogue. My first question to you is to know, first and foremost, what is peak-level social dialogue, and also why this edition focuses on this topic.
Thank you, Mamadou, and thank you for having me. Let me start by just reminding that this is the second edition of a flagship on social dialogue. Being the house of dialogue, and tripartism, it was important to have a flagship report dealing with issues and making emphasis on social dialogue, and how social dialogue can help processing negotiations, consensus, and building trust. And when we're talking about peak level social dialogue is when you have process and institutions could be bipartite or tripartite, which are employers, governments, and workers' organizations, working towards a consensus on issues that are really relate to the actors of the labor market. And when we started this report, we wanted to focus on this to create a leverage which could be at the national level, could be at the sectoral level, but to showcase that when these actors are involved on policy development, the implementation is better understood, but also the impact of the decisions that are being taken can be more easily understood and implemented.
So, Vera, as you know, VAILO is a normative organization, and we advocate for the promotion and the implementation of international labor standards. The report finds that countries' compliance with freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining has deteriorated by 7% between 2015 and 2022. In your view, how to ensure the respect of this fundamental principle and right at work as essential prerequisite for effective peak-level social dialogue?
Thank you for bringing the percentage of the deterioration that was occurred between 2015 and 2022. And this is very concerning. It's a major challenge when you talk about peak-level social dialogue. The report argues that although there is not one-size-fits-all, there is some prerequisites that needs to be taken into account when we engage in a social dialogue. And one of them is the respect for the fundamental principles of rights at work. And you know that today we have 5 principles, but there is one which we call the freedom of association and collective bargaining, which are those who create the environment to implement and promote and respect these 5 principles. So when we talk about recognizing that both fundamental rights and the enable conditions for the decent work agenda, we have to see that compliance of freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining has deteriorated by 7 points. And this decline was driven by increased violations on the civil liberties and collective bargaining rights, and also both for employers and workers' organizations. So there is importance to stop a bit and think about how this can impact the effectiveness of promoting fundamental principles of rights at work.
We know that social dialogue is very important. It's a tool for building consensus. It's a tool for shaping policies by involving social partners. But a key findings in the report is the concerns expressed by workers and employers organizations about the government's ability to appropriately follow up the outcomes of the national social dialogue institutions. In the context of multiple crises, in your view, why government should invest more in peak-level social dialogue?
Let me just go back to one point that I should have said in your previous question, is that when you talk about what could be the actions to address this decrease on the freedom of association and collective bargaining, first of all is the issue about ratification. And we know that ratification of Convention 87/98 still some room for improvement. In particular, that the major member states of dialogue, which have a very large workforce, have not ratified, which creates, so there is part of this work population that are not covered by this convention, so we need to look at it. And the second one is the promotion, and how governments and social partners can promote the effective realization of these rights, ensuring that those fundamental principles are applicable. So going back to your point about how government should invest on the peak level social dialogue, the report brings one novelty which is interesting. Is it had looked at what we call national social dialogue institutions, which are formed by arrangements for tripartite or bipartite social dialogue at a national level. Out of the 187 member states of the ILO, 87% have these institutions, which is a good thing, that we have established national social dialogue institutions where their competencies are to have a focus on specific issues like employment, skills, or minimum wage setting. However, we did some survey perception conducted for the report among 71 employers' organizations and trade unions in 38 countries. And this survey found out that effectiveness and inclusiveness is an issue. That 3/4 of the workers or those who responded and 2/3 of employers responded were fully, largely positive, saying this is a good thing that we have these national tripartite institutions. But we have also a large majority that thinks that there is no follow-up on decisions that are taken on those institutions. When they meet, there is need to stronger and more follow-up to be done by the public authorities. And this is why it is important to see that we need to invest on those institutions, but we need to invest also on the peak level social dialogue, strengthening trust among governments and workers and employers, also creating that the country can benefit in terms of economic, social and political terms. When you have trust, when you have actors that can play their role and they can have influence on the policies which target a number of workers but also enterprises, creates a more social environment for growth. So there is important to see that we need to have cooperation, effective and inclusive peak level social dialogue, institutions and process to foster cooperation, to drive innovative solutions, to shape inclusive and forward-looking strategies for economic and social resilience, but also requires adequate labor administrations. As we know, employers and workers' organizations will not thrive if you don't have administrations that are capable to create the environment for a peaceful negotiation and create integrating social dialogue and policy domains. So I would say that these are the conditions that will require if you want to reverse the trend of this decrease, but also creating the capacity at the country level to have more, I would say, responsive to the decisions taken at a national level.
So we are living today in the digital era with the growing importance of artificial intelligence, which is, as you know, shaping the world of work with many jobs at risk being replaced or transformed. How can peak level social dialogue help address the challenges posed by the disruption and support workers in transitioning to and thriving in this evolving labor landscape?
The peak level social dialogue is critical to enable a just and effective digital transition. And this capitalizes on economic growth and productivity opportunities without leaving workers behind. So it's important that we see the peak and safe social dialogue discussions to build consensus for a need for digital transformation that identify what are the skills required for transition and shapes a tailored and balanced solution. It's not a top-down, but is an engagement of conversation offering a credible alternative to prescriptive and avoiding the top-down regulations. But yet, we found that the peak level social dialogue in digital transition remains underdeveloped and not evenly distributed regionally. First of all, we have out of 118 peak level social dialogue outcomes, 20 only have been negotiated between 22 and 23 have addressed the digital transition, which shows really that we still have room to grow, and that also the majority is more in Europe, on the global north, than in other regions of the world. So we need to also look at to that. But despite of this, the report also has some showcases, and you can find that in 2023 there was an agreement between Microsoft and IFLO-CO, which ensure that workers are informed about IA trends and engage on IA development, addressing the potential risk connected with algorithm management. We have also an example about Canada. In Canada, the Future Skills Council that proposed a digital skills recognition platform to map the skills acquired in technical and vocational training. So there is, in the report, you'll find some examples that showcase how we can use peak level social dialogue to address the challenge that we may face with artificial intelligence.
So just to conclude, the report contains several interesting recommendations and policy recommendations, in particular for our constituents. Coming back to the trade unions, how, in your view, they can use the findings and recommendations to protect workers, but in particular the vulnerable groups? I'm thinking about those who are in the informal economy or those who are working for the platform work, while also they are advocating for stronger and more inclusive peak-level social dialogue and social justice.
I think you find in the report that the flagship report that trade unions with some insights then can help to target those vulnerable. Indeed, the report has shown that some groups are less, some negotiations or trade or some social dialogue have not covered the vulnerable, in particular those sitting in the informal economy, women also have been one of the points that we identify. But at the same time, I think we have examples in the report, such as the one related to in Spain in 2021, when they had the Riders Act, which recognized the food delivery riders working for digital platforms as employees, stemming from a tripartite, and this was really a tripartite agreement on the platform economy between trade unions, employers and organizations and the government of Spain. So those examples shows that this is possible. But at the same time, we see that the social dialogue in times of crisis is where, when you reach more, you reach to those who have not probably been covered in the previous negotiations, but it creates space to be more inclusive and responsive to the needs of the workers. So I do think that inclusivity by reaching out to those who are in the vulnerable sector or vulnerable sectors can be a way of touching upon and using the power of a social dialogue when engaging on negotiations.
So Vera, let's imagine that there is a trade unionist who is watching this conversation from one country in Africa or in Asia or in any place in the world. What could be your final message to this group of workers who are very interested by the question of social dialogue, and also what could be your final takeaway for those who are watching this conversation?
I would say the final takeaway is really to engage with trade unions in their space of work, so they can be protected, but also creates a way of expressing their own needs and adjusting to this changing world that we're observing, but also all the challenge that they may be facing in terms of protecting their rights, but also creating space for a more peaceful, more equitable society.
Thank you very much, Vera, for this conversation. It's really a pleasure for us to have you with us and to have a conversation on the social dialogue. I just want to remind to our audiences that today we receive Vera Perdigao. Vera is the director of the ILO Governance Department. We discuss about the new ILO flagship report, which focuses this year on social dialogue. You can find these publications on the ILO's website in different formats, in different languages, and we invite you really to take advantage of these very important publications that can help to foster more social dialogue as a tool for peace and social justice. Thank you for watching this conversation, and we hope to see you soon for a new episode of Actrav Conversation.